I hear background noise there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my wife.
Got a party going on?
Got a party going on. We're have family in town. A little
Oh,
3-year-olds dancing to my wife's VBS type music. So
good.
a little background.
House full of life. That's good.
Yeah, it is.
Good to see you, my friend. Obviously, I'm wearing my hair down today.
I wasn't going to comment on your hair or your beard today, but since you brought it up,
yes, I'm doing it because I can.
Because you can. You're rebelling is what you're doing. You're rebelling against your wife and society in general. Because I know your wife doesn't like it. That came out in our last.
She'll say that. She'll say that, and then she'll go. She'll see me at, like, I've just washed it or something and blow dried it, and she goes, "Oh, you should do it like this and like that."
Yes.
Okay. But you didn't like it.
That'd be irresistible for any woman. Yes. Even if they don't like it, let's change it.
So. Right. Okay. I know we have a topic today, Joel, but I did.
It's a general topic, so
yeah. We'll get to it here in a second. But I did promise the crew over at Bible Every Morning that I would be doing some updates here with you on some stuff. Ooh, Ara has joined us. Ara's in here. Yeah. Sometimes he joins over at Bible Every Morning, and I directed everybody to come over here if they want some updates.
I want some updates too. Let's go.
All right. Well, so the main big update is tomorrow night. You got the flyer, right?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So that it's a milestone event, and I've been bathing it with prayer. It's in God's hands. I have a few friends coming, and Ara and Celine have been pushing this very hard, and it's humbling and an honor, and it's the first thing that's being thrown on my behalf. Well, I mean, I've been invited to a few things like this event on Thursday. Tomorrow is I think it's like the 9-month anniversary, or I began my public facing aspect of this project, right? I've been working and developing stuff, and it was November 11th of 2023 that Ara invited me to speak. That was the first time I had been invited to speak about this project anywhere. And so that I called it like the soft launch, but it was technically the launch of me speaking forward to not just the Armenian community, but publicly about this project. So this is like the 9-month anniversary, right? Technically, August 11th will be the 9-month. 9-month? Am I getting that right? Maybe 10-month.
10
month.
Maybe
November 11th to August 11th or
9.
August.
Yeah.
I don't know. My math is escaping me right now.
Right.
But it's a milestone. And from that November 11th, I've been invited on a couple of podcasts. I've been invited to a couple of churches to speak. I've done my first bookstore lecture and book sales. But this is the first event that is being thrown as a fundraising event for the project specifically. And so it is technically the beginning of the fundraising tour. And so that's huge. And I'm very much looking forward to just showing up, hanging out, connecting with people that I haven't seen in a while that are going to be there, and meeting new people. And so if you can make it, it'd be wonderful. I know it's quite a drive for you.
It is, but if I can be there, I will.
All right. Another update. This just happened last night. So my blood is still boiling a little bit.
Takes a lot to get you riled up.
Well, it doesn't take much to get me passionate, right, about this project and about what God is doing, right? It's like on a dime. I can get very passionate, and some people may interpret that as, you sounded angry. Oh, sorry, I'm just passionate, not angry. I'm forceful with the facts, right? I've been researching this thing for 7 years, and I was like, I've been, I kind of know what I'm doing, or, not that I know everything, but I am an expert, right? Technically an expert in at least Soghomon Tehlirian, right? and I'm a biblical scholar, right? I went to some seminary level education. All of that to say is I was invited to a panel discussion last night, and it wasn't a live panel discussion. It was a recording, and it's going to be used, I believe, for educational purposes. The guy who invited me, um, he's invited me before. He's a high school teacher out of Texas. He's an Odar like you and I. He's a non-Armenian who cares about the accurate history, the accurate telling of what happened to the Armenians in World War One and all Armenian history. Like he's fallen in love with the culture just as I have, and so he teaches his students and he does some webinars. I don't know who the audience is. I have interacted with some of his students when we did it live from his classroom, etc. So he invited me to a panel discussion last night that he was hosting. I didn't know who else was going to be there. I knew there was at least potentially one priest that had responded in an email. The priest didn't show up, but last night I'm running a little bit late. It's supposed to start at 6:30 Pacific time. I get in around 6:34, 6:35, and I pop in, and it's two other people in there. The guy hosting, and you'll never guess who the other guy that he got.
I know who it is. I can't think of his name, but it's your guy that you kind of cut him short at our meeting down here. Yeah,
my
he
hater
was there to make trouble.
the
He's
guy
usually there
that
to make trouble.
the guy who I refer to affectionately as my hater, the first Armenian that I've run into that is trying to undermine Soghomon Tehlirian's story. Yes, so this unassuming Odar who cares about history has, he reaches out and at some point he's made contact with Ara, the other one, Ara M, whose name we won't, and so I show up and I see his face in there, and he's got his screen behind him on the Zoom call is his book title and everything, and I'm like, oh no. I personally, I am very polite. Like the guy hosting it, his name is Mike. Also, he used to tell me, he turned to me first, right? He's like, all right, I just want you guys to introduce yourself. So Michael, please, tell us about, what you're doing. So I just gave I was going to say a brief, but I don't know if it's ever brief when I'm talking. But I gave a outline of the beginning of this project, and I even pointed out, I said, and your other guest here with us today, Mike, is one of the first Armenian friends, right, that I made when, I went to the bookstore, and the bookstore owner told me some things and said, oh, and I know this guy, and I, was very, polite about it and very matter of fact. And then when Ara's turn came and he shared a little bit, I direct messaged the host, and I'm like, by the way, this guy doesn't like me very much. And he goes, oh, thank you for letting me know. Right. And so then, eventually when I was describing, the next question for me was to describe in detail what Soghomon experienced at the moment of the assassination, etc. And I did. I gave it in great detail, and just exactly what's been documented, what Soghomon wrote, and what was testified to in the court trial, etc. And plus some insights from Soghomon's memoir. And then when it was this guy's turn to respond, he was like, unfortunately, none of that is true. I'm like, wait, I just outlined things that are objectively true and a few details about his personal responses to what he did. But the guy just, he can't help himself to undermine the hero's narrative. It just is baffling to me. So I let him go, and I didn't cut him off. I just let him talk. But eventually, midway through the thing, it's like I had to point out some of this stuff, et cetera, and it was more of the same. You were at were you at the April 17th? Did you come up for the April 17th event at? I don't think you made it to that one.
No.
So
no, I've only been up to the meeting of the 12.
Got it. So
Yeah.
the April 17th one, he got up during the Q&A session and went on into his litany of, his tirade or his whatever. And so it was more of the same yesterday. And I was polite, And then there was like a final question. When I finished the final question, he started talking again. And I politely said to Mike, the host, I said, I got to go. We've been on for an hour and 20 minutes and my dinner's getting cold. And I'm sorry. I got to jump out. So then I left and he was still talking. So that guy, let that guy have the last word or whatever. But then I also emailed the host saying, this guy, he's kind of an embarrassment in the Armenian community. He has some very biased, non-factual opinions that he's turning into history, etc. So my blood was still boiling, and my wife at dinner was like, "You okay?" So I still have a little of that. It's dissipating. I'm good. I'm among friends now. So there's the update. There's the update. That happened last night. That guy. That's the third time since April. April 17th, and then June 30th, he shows up, and then yesterday, surprise, he's just out there. Oh, and here's the thing that I have to disclose here to this audience, to my friends, and to my prayer warriors. He was showing video that he had taken when he and his mother went to visit Soghomlon's son, Zavin. Right, the people who have given me the life story rights before I was ever in the picture. This was like a year or two, maybe 3 before I ever came in the picture. So it was like probably around 2015, 2016. This guy and his mother went to visit, and he video recorded him, and he was showing excerpts last night. And it was zoomed in. He didn't show the face, and he didn't give the names or anything, but he had the voice and some of the interview with the son of Soghomlon. This is a guy that's trying to undermine Soghomlon's narrative, yet he's using Soghomlon's family for his own point of view, and like, all right, I just gotta let it go. I had to get it off my chest.
Right. All right.
On to the next topic, if you like.
Yeah. Well, we've had one person predicted that you and him will be good friends one day, and
I hope so.
Lucas made a good point. That's how you can tell you're over the target. You're over the mark.
Right. And it's the way it feels. Literally, when I saw his face before they let me into the Zoom, I see his face. I'm like, oh no, here we go. Do I really? Can I don't want to platform this guy. I literally like. He's not. Sadly, he's only he's playing off of his family lineage, and that's the only thing that gives him credibility. And it's deceptive, because just because you're related to somebody, and even that somebody that you're related to, doesn't mean everything they say is gospel. Everything, their opinion and their perspective of history is not fact. Like, he kept trying to refute things that I was saying. It's like, well, Shahan Nadali, my grandfather, said this and this and this. I'm like, that's one person's point of view. He doesn't know everything that Soghomlon went through. And neither did Soghomlon know everything that Shahan Nadali went through. But if you're basing all of your narrative and all of your story on one person's point of view, you are by definition ignorant, right? I've been working with the historians out of Georgetown and Yale and Harvard, and I've been in the archives, and I've been at the locations, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not Armenian. I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want the facts of history. And it's like, so do I. And Shahan Nadali said, I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but I do, and I even said it in the discussion. I said, I want this story told. I want Shahan Nadali's story to be fleshed out. He's an important character, and I would love for you to be involved with what I'm doing if you do have access to information that we don't have, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why don't you want this story told? And it's like, I do. And I'm like, it's been over 100 years. Come on.
Right.
You don't want it told if it hasn't been told.
Well, he wants it told his way.
Right.
Not that,
and
you're a threat to that. Yeah.
And he's been with the story his whole life. So for him, it's 50 years. Like, 50 years, when are you going to tell the story? Huh? Anyway, sorry. You can see how know me. You know me. Yeah. So
I do.
In all, it was fun. It was exciting.
Well, hey, I mean, you're going to face opposition one way or the other. And I'm sure. And like I said, I've heard in various forms that, the Armenian people this is the only thing that unites them. Other than that, they're pretty, they're like everybody else. They have their problems, right? And they have their turf wars and they have their, political things or whatever it is. So, yep.
All right. I need to respond to a couple things in the comments here.
Yeah.
Tell him to go write a book. He has written a book. In fact, his whole background was the cover of his book. And here's the great irony, tender place for your information. The great irony is, as he tries to undermine the narrative, this hero's narrative, right? Soghomon Tehlirian's own words, his own account, he tries to undermine it, saying this is not written by him, blah, 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 blah. As he does that, he takes Soghomon's name and puts Soghomon Tehlirian's name on the cover of his own book as one of the authors, right? He says, this wasn't written by Soghomon, and then he takes an excerpt from this and puts it in his own book. And by doing that, feels justified in using Soghomon's name to sell his own book as he's trying to undermine Soghomon. It's this irony. And I pointed that out last night. I think that's the first time I've actually said it to his face. And then another thing I want to address here is, you didn't invite me to the party.
Oh,
I don't know what party. What party are you talking about? You're coming tomorrow night.
That's right.
This was a Zoom conference recording between just the three of us. So I don't know. I didn't have a link. There was no public link. So I would have invited everyone. Yeah. So, all right. We have another topic.
I doubt Ara ever has trouble finding a party. So I don't. I wouldn't worry about that.
True. There's plenty of parties you haven't invited me to, Ara.
That's right.
But less and less in the future. We'll be hanging out a lot more as this thing gets funded. We're going to be hanging out a lot.
Hey, that's the goal. Yeah.
I imagine there might be one or two people. I doubt it, maybe, but who've tuned in because of the topic. What's
the topic? Yes. Nothing important. Just the economy and the future of our nation. That's all. Gina was bugging me for a topic last night, as usual. And as usual, I couldn't think of one. So I waited till 10 o'clock our time, which is, she should be asleep. But no, I did hear something yesterday from a guy named Victor Davis Hanson. I don't know if you're familiar.
I just watched like an hour-long discussion of him with somebody from, I love the guy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He made a good point and it was about Trump and politics and the strategy and how much Trump's team has grown up basically and improved. And he mentioned that one of the things Trump is doing is he's going to the Black and Latino communities and appealing to them, saying you have more in common than you have difference in skin color. And you have more in common with each other than you do these Hollywood elites that fly around in private jets lecturing you about global warming, right? Yeah. And those kinds of things. And he said it's taking us away from, he's trying to take us away from a race conflict and making it more of a class conflict, which on the surface is kind of gets my hackles up. Now it sounds like Marxism, class warfare or whatever. Right. But I thought he was making a good point in that if we can get, one of the ways we can get beyond our racial differences is realizing our economic commonalities. Yes, that's a good point. So I just thought it was a very interesting thing as the economy starts to strain right now. And we've had the stock market crash and bad employment numbers. My family's feeling it. For the first time in our marriage, we're feeling some financial stress. And part of it is realizing how much more expensive it's gotten to live where you and I live in California. So I just thought it was an interesting thing that might be good for discussion. How do we react to the economic troubles as those people of Christian faith who, God feeds the sparrows in the air, or I'm not recalling the parable yet, but God knows our needs. We trust him with it. And yet it's just a natural stress. Like I said, it's something that, that we have to deal with here. And how do we put our trust in God and yet still get the message out that we can do better and we can affect a positive change without coming across as just, people who are worried about money and things like that. So in tough economic times, which I think are coming very much, how do we as Christians react to that?
What is difficult for us to often difficult for us to understand in general, because we're middle class, right? You and I, we would be considered middle class. We're not impoverished, right? We're not on the streets, but neither are we, do we have $100 million bank accounts, right? So we're that thing that in the past hasn't really existed much in other cultures, like, right? There's been more of a glaring bifurcation of cultures in the past, whereas we've had this strong middle class for a long time. But that having a strong middle class does not eliminate the corruption of the elites, right? And so now, who's feeling it? Who feels this economic strain the most? It's the people at the bottom, right? The I hope I don't get a strike for calling them illegals that come in across the border, right? The people coming across the border illegally are only hurting the bottom rung of the ladder here. Oh, not only hurting, but are primarily hurting those who are in the most dire straits, and also the inflation and the gas prices and your McDonald's doubling, whatever, everything, those prices affect that same group, right? Those who are the most economically in the most dire straits. We feel it more gradually. They feel it more instantly, and we're seeing the frustration explode in not just in our country, but in other countries as the economic system is more and more strained by the corruption of those in power, the elites.
And yes, and along with that goes the social strain too, which we tend to talk about because we're Christians. We're so in concern with morality, but the economic. I once did a podcast on social issues, a 3-part podcast, and first was I call them first megaphone issues. The ones we scream at each other about, and then I talked about earbud issues. Ones that are kind of under the surface, pornography, that kind of thing. But the third one I thought was the biggest social issue of all, according to the Bible and according to Jesus, was money and finance. It's all over the place, and it's not something we as Christians talk about much. We're so consumed with the morality aspect and the moral decay that we see. But if you read the Bible even a little bit, you'll find out that money and finances are a huge deal to God. So
yes, it's when you break down the topics that Jesus covered when he spoke, when you break them down in categories, the largest category is stewardship, finance, right? The thing he talked about more than anything else. It's not the thing he talked about the most, but among the different topics, finance, stewardship is the number one. And that, what is the proverb? Where your treasure is, there. Wait, maybe it's not a proverb. Where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. And it's like, yeah, you can't live if you can't afford to live.
Well, even our heavenly reward he puts in terms of treasure in heaven. Houses, gold, precious jewels that don't burn up. And if you don't live your life, it's like wood, hay, and stubble that'll destroy. But if you do live a faithful, obedient life, and then your reward will be financial. Now, it's not. I don't think there'll be money in heaven, or gold and silver and jewels won't mean anything. But it's how he chose to put it in terms that we'd understand, because and also the thing about Marxism, I just realized that we're pretty much finding out, and there's a lot of people commenting on this, that Marxism is really a satanic movement. And what they've done, what's Marx's big thing, class warfare, economic determinism, right? He takes God's biggest concern and turns it on its head and uses it basically against his people and against his morality. This Western Judeo-Christian view we have that is formed by the Bible, Marxism takes that, turns it inside out, and uses it as a wedge to divide. So,
yeah, that's actually that's an astute observation as to, well, division, right? The way you undermine a people is you divide them, and that's all Marxism is. It's pitting
yes.
groups against each other. Healthy cultures unify, unhealthy cultures divide. And so Marxism can't ever produce, by its nature, can't ever produce a healthy culture. Socialism can't ever happen. It can't ever happen. There's no way that you're ever going to get an elite to give up everything and become like the masses, right? There's always going to be a controlling group that are the elites. Socialism means everybody's equal. That will never happen in human culture. And I do want to point out one thing here. I want to comment on Kerry. Look what Kerry's saying.
Yeah.
No one who.
There is the sunshine factor in there.
I understand the sentiment of this, right? And it's becoming increasingly true, right? It's becoming increasingly true that the California, the business owners, small business owners who are not the elite, right? Those are people that, have, maybe it's a guy who owns $1 million business. That guy's not rich. $1 million business, even if he makes $1 million on his company a year, he might make 100,000 out of that. The rest of it is business expenses, right? That's not a rich person. That's a middle class.
Yeah,
person.
And don't fall into what the rest of the country thinks about. Your view of California is not. California is actually two states. It's not north and south. It's east and the coast. About this much of the coast is what the rest of the
LA and San Francisco.
LA, San Francisco, San Diego. That's what everybody thinks it is. But to the east, it's much like any other place. But getting back to socialism, your favorite guy, Doug Wilson, was telling something about how socialism works. He said why it doesn't work and why it inevitably leads to violence. He goes, because you can't force someone to spend $100 making a widget and force them to sell it for $75 and have it last at all. It's going to collapse.
Yeah. And
when it does collapse, it can't be because socialism doesn't work. It has to be because of that guy or some other guy, some other enemy of the state. So there's always this thing, because it can never be the ruling class and the socialist class. And that's why I said you can't vote your way out of socialism. You can vote your way into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out. Because it's just an economic system that doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, they won't admit it. They'll say you're the problem.
You just did it wrong. It was just done wrong. It's like, well, it's
or
never
you were
been
an
done
enemy
right.
of the state. You were subversive. Yeah. So, no.
Well, another point I want to make is it's also economies of scale. Living in California, there's a different. You can't judge my income as you would if the same dollar amount in New Mexico or something, right? The amount of money that I make for a living would put me in the upper middle, probably upper middle class in many of the states, but the cost of living in California reduces that significantly. I may make the low six figures, which I do, but I live next door to people who are making high to middle six figures and own their $1 million homes, and I'm a renter, right? So in this economy of scale, if I took myself and my livelihood out and put it anywhere else in the country, I'd be living high on the hog.
Oh yeah, and people that are living in California are doing just that.
Yeah.
So
I have the benefits of suffering and struggling like a poor person in a very rich neighborhood.
Right.
So we're out of time already.
We're out of time.
But it's good to see you, Joel. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night. If I don't, I'll definitely see you again.
I will try my best to make it. Yes. And it'll be a good event though. And now, is it going to be streamed at all and videoed?
There's no presentation being done. This is Celine is putting this on. She's done these before. these. It's a social kind of a social networking. It's
Right.
called Connections, and there's a ticket price to get in, and as soon as the costs of throwing the event are covered, everything above those costs she's going to donate through a nonprofit to what we're doing here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then
It's
I'll have
amazing.
to try double hard to make it then.
Thank you. All right, bye everybody. Love you.
Hi, everyone.
God
Thanks.
is in control.
He is.